Dibs on your table when you're gone.
Yeah.
I'm taking it with me.
You're taking it with you? That would actually be great.
That's why I drove the truck.
I'd be fine with that. Take all three of these with you because these don't match up and it drives me crazy. The miters don't match. They're off a half an inch. It drives me crazy.
All right. Let's wait for Kristen then.
Okay.
We'll wait one more minute. Thank you.
You ever notice that, Ben?
What?
These miters don't match.
It's close.
It's a good half inch over here. It drives me nuts.
It's within an acceptable
I mean,
range.
it's close enough for government, work, but, you know.
It's worked thus far. It's a nice looking table.
So is this gonna be your last meeting?
Mhm.
Oh, man.
Yeah. This is it.
Get all up in my feelings, man.
What's that?
So I'm gonna get all up in my feelings, man. Barely ever been without Ben on zoning.
That's true.
I never really have.
Hey.
You were on here before me.
Wish I was in Italy.
Yeah. I believe that.
Big shoes to fill.
Is that where you just?
You were on what, like 2 years before I got on?
For 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Gosh. I'm like,
When I was mayor,
like happy for you, but mad at you at the
2
same
years.
time. Like, yay for you, jerk.
Jerk.
But
4 or 6 years on
That's good.
zoning.
You
years
give
on
Shannon and
council.
I the download when we go and like.
Then I got on and then everybody,
We're losing more knowledge than we
4 years
have.
overlapping.
We're losing more knowledge than we have combined, I think.
That's,
You
no,
all
it's all good.
that are there.
I got on and everybody left.
Around for 3
And then COVID hit.
We did.
Shake up.
'Cause we didn't know.
COVID was not easy.
We had all those online meetings. I think it was the best feedback we ever got though.
Go back every.
Are you gonna try to use zoning in Newark?
Oh, I don't know.
All right.
You haven't
I
thought
don't know.
about it yet?
It runs so much more streamlined. You probably love
I
it.
had the last one.
Cause all the stuff has to be submitted and to you a month before the meeting.
Sure.
Questions?
You'll love that. Cause you'll have a month to go through it.
Fair.
Not a big deal.
All right, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. Call to order. A planning and zoning meeting, Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. We'll start out with our pledge of allegiance. Oh, actually, let's do the roll call.
Do the
Sorry,
roll call.
Teresa. Jump in the gun.
Make sure we're all here.
Jesse Copple.
Here.
Brian Green.
Here.
Kristen Hurst.
Here.
Steve Dyer.
Here.
Ben Lee.
Here.
That was it.
I pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll down our agenda here. Public comment, items not on the agenda. Did anybody talk about anything not on the agenda? Going once, going twice. All right, move to item number 4, public hearing on the rezoning request for 670 West Coshocton Street. PZ Resolution 2024-01. Sean, you want to start us out with the staff report on this one?
Sure. Well, I'll start with a quick narrative, but Trevor did the full staff report, so I'll defer to him after I get done, just kind of giving the introduction. You all passed a resolution initiating this process. This came about when a request for a business to be located in the 670 West Coshocton Street address. We looked into the zoning map, and the property is split from a use and what is permitted. One is residential, one is commercial. Tried to do a little bit of back research on this, how we got to this, but we're unsuccessful. But I think what we all came up with was probably not the intent when this was utilized. And because it splits a building in half, and I want to emphasize that, because it splits a building in half, it probably leads to some quandaries as to why it existed this way. I'm not opposed to split zoning on parcels of land. Sometimes you want the commercial to be in the front and a softer residential to be in the back. So in some circumstances, I think that makes sense. With this particular situation, I think it was a misstep or something that just got kind of squared off and lumped in with a zoning whenever GCC2 maybe it was originally originated. My assumption is the old Coghlan dealership had been there probably pre-GCC2 zoning. I can't be sure of that, but that's the hypothesis. So, all that to be said, we are looking at this and initiated it on our end to clean this up. We did get confirmation from the property owner that he is agreeable to this consideration being given for his property. Other than that, I think that's the highlight reel and a recap of how we got where we're at right now. I can also give you the process that will work through council. And I'll give you that quick detail, and I'm going to turn it over to Trevor. So tonight, you have a public hearing. You can make a recommendation tonight. You can wait 30 days to make a recommendation. That recommendation would be a recommendation for approval, recommendation for denial, or recommendation for approval with conditions. That would then get passed off to council. Council will have a hearing on their end after 30 days that you've given them a report with your recommendation. After that hearing, they'll have at their next regular council meeting a vote on whether they want to change the ordinance. And by ordinance, it's the zoning map establishing the zoning districts. And at that particular hearing, or I'm sorry, that particular reading will be the council vote would be enacted. And then after that, it would be a 30-day waiting period for it to go into effect unless they did it by emergency. So that's the procedural piece of it. The zoning piece of it, I will defer to Trevor as he put together a fantastic staff report.
Thanks. Sean did a great job giving an overview. Really, we looked back, or this came about whenever I was asked to review whether or not a specific use was allowed in that, within the former Ford dealership there, which is located in the SR1 zoning district. And just to Sean's point, in order to clean this up and avoid future issues of this similar nature, it's recommended to have a consistent zoning applied to the entirety of the property. In this case, the GCC2 zoning district, which allows for generally a wide variety of commercial uses within the city. I don't see any issues with the request based on the criteria, that I looked through in the code. The adopted ordinances don't establish any criteria specifically for rezoning review. However, I did review the request based on the comprehensive plan and on the surrounding zoning and did not find any inconsistencies with the request. And with that, I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you have.
Okay, I'm gonna kick it to public comment first. Do we have any public comment on this issue? All right, hearing no public comment, let's go to the commissioners. Kristen, you want to start? Do you have any questions or comments on this?
I don't. I think it makes sense to make it commercial, everything there. And it's
Steve?
already being used as
Yeah.
commercial, so.
Steve? Ryan?
No, I believe this is, concurrent with historical use of the property. Falls within all of our planning that we have talked about, even design review board, right down to everything else. We've called out in all of our planning, the need to get rid of split zoning, so that falls in line with this as well, so.
Ben?
The only thing that I would say is just to follow up on the request that I made initially when we talked about this on the 13th of August. We got the letter of support, so that's appreciated from the owner. The application was initiated by this board, so there really isn't an application that we would defer to other than the zoning report that we were given. And then there was notification to the parcels via the ad and the advocate that was put in there as well. The biggest thing that I just want to call out, would remind the commission, is if you look at the specific map right now, and I'm just calling it out, not that it hasn't been this way for, I believe, the last 40 years at least, is that you've got a home, two homes, I believe, wedged back in there. And the only thing that I can recall is when we originally had a discussion about these parcels that used to make up the Coghlan dealership, is that there was an easement, an access easement still in place. I don't know if it was recorded or anything to that end, but just to continue to allow access for those homes since they're kind of landlocked, which is something that we've continued to work against and eliminate, is those landlocked parcels for the access easement reasons. So as long as, and I still think at the end of the day, this needs to be cleaned up. You shouldn't have split zoning, especially when it splits a building in half. I think this is just a housekeeping thing. But just as a matter of record, I would want to make sure that for the benefit of those homes that are back there, that there's, there's still an access easement available for them. So I don't know if you tie
But
that.
do we have the
specifically-
authority to create an easement anyway? I don't know.
We have called out in the past, I think we did this with, we've done this with this property before since I've been on here. I think it happened with Wendy's, when we talked about something with Wendy's. I think when the axe throwing place went in, there's another barn that's been approved back there, I think as well. We've talked about this parcel a number of times and it's always something that gets called out. We had the same
Weren't those
with.
two parcels combined at one point and we split them?
That's what I was trying to remember. I think we split
And I
them
think that's
within the
where-
last 3 years.
And I think that's where we had that conversation.
Right. We've had
So-
that conversation.
So
I think we've done our due diligence every time to remind them, whether they do it or not is up to the property owner.
Yeah.
So
I-
the rezoning wouldn't
the
supersede
easement,
an easement. That would be probably up to the design review board on some sort of certificate of a new building coming in.
No, not an easement to the design review board, no.
Well, if they could build it over an easement or not, who would that come to?
The only thing that we would have something to say about is if they tried to split the parcel like a flag lot, which we don't really
If they
allow
try to build
anymore,
a
but-
building over an easement, that would have to get approved by the design review board, is my understanding, right? No, Sean?
No.
What's your understanding on that? Who would prevent them from
Unless
building
the
over an
easement
easement?
specifically states that you can't build on it. An easement is defined that you have to allow.
Well, every easement's different according to what the easement is, but if it's an access easement, you couldn't build over that. That would just be a
You
private
couldn't
lawsuit
block
then.
it. So if you decided to put a building in some of the easement, let's say you had an encroachment, for example, and the person that had the right to the access to that wanted to call in question the building encroachment and his ability to use the easement for the parameters that are laid out, they would then have to remove the building. If you have a utility easement, something's underground, and you place a building on top of it, typically if some repairs need to be made, that building is removed at the owner's expense. So it's kind of at the owner's risk if they
So it's just
decide to
the
step-
owner of the easement, the beneficiary of the easement has the private lawsuit, okay? So there's nothing that this board would.
I make the comment just to make the comment. I don't make it as a condition or anything other than just bringing up the fact that as this lot continues to be a point of focus, that continues just to be for the commission to make sure that we protect the homeowners that are back there that have access to their property. That's all. I still think this is something that needs to be done. It was a process initiated by the board, so, but I want to continue to call that
Historical
out.
feats are.
That
yeah,
slim
features
piece of
that-
property that comes down to the right of where you've highlighted now, I know this isn't necessarily germane to the issue at hand, but, no, that's not connected. I don't believe ownership is the same behind there to that lot, but I was gonna say they do have maybe an option there, but,
Just wanted to put it out there.
yeah.
All right,
I think at the end of the day, as 113706 are the criteria for review. And I believe that the staff report kind of outlined those. So just as a matter of record too, I would just like to say that 113706 A through E, for me, as I went through the application, nothing stands out as inhibiting the passage of this to allow for the rezoning to happen.
with that, I would like to make a motion to pass this as written.
I'll second.
Teresa?
Trustee Cobble?
Yes.
Ben Lee?
Yes.
Kristen Hurst?
Yes.
Steve Dyer?
Yes.
Ryan Green?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to number 5 on our agenda, application 8-14-5, conditional use permit, Pure Leaf, 150 Commerce Boulevard. Sean, can you give us the staff intro on this one, please?
Sure. Again, I'll give the introduction, and then I will pass the baton over to Trevor. He did another fantastic job of preparing a staff report. So with the conditional use that's required for this particular permitted use, or conditional use, being medical marijuana, is highlighted in our particular zoning classification. We won't dive into the recreational, it's grandfathered, state law will supersede our law, so there's no question or issue there. But because it is a conditional use for an expansion on this site, it does need to come through the board for a conditional use expansion. sorry, misspoke, just a conditional use, not a conditional use expansion, but because they're expanding is why you have to come before the conditional use. If you followed all that, kudos to you. So, what I want to emphasize here is, this is a conditional use permit. I would emphasize using the conditional use requirements whenever you're looking at whether this should be approved. The site plan, all of the other requirements that are required in the LM district will be submitted and reviewed by staff on a separate application. It'll be a zoning certificate that they'll need to apply for. They will have to address a variety of things such as street trees, setbacks, green space, everything that's in a regular light manufacturing zoning application. They will have to work through that process with that. This is really just looking at the permitted piece of this, and because it's a conditional use, you then look at it from a conditional perspective. And with that, I'm gonna hand over to Trevor, and I'll also allow him to correct me if I went wrong on any of those items.
No, you,
Okay.
great intro. I will give a little bit of an overview. I believe the updated packet had the proposed site plan included in it, so I did just want to walk through that a little bit. The existing building that's there will be expanded to basically to the northeast of the existing facility. Additional parking will be provided along with some expanded stormwater retention areas as well. So I kind of just wanted to give you a layout, or Sean, you pull it up. Okay.
Yep, got it.
So you can kind of see there, it's on the site plan. I'm gonna walk over to the far, I think most people can see me over there. So the existing building is in the hatched area that you see here, existing building 1 and 2. The expansion.
Trying to get it bigger for you.
I was gonna say, we don't have touchscreen here.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
The expansion area is this outlined area, again, to the northeast of the existing facility. The expanded stormwater will be to the south of the existing facility. There are some laydown areas associated with the construction. And then the existing 2 access points along Commerce Boulevard will continue to be utilized to service the facility. So I say all that to say, really, there's no new connection points to the existing roadways. My understanding is the existing water and sewer infrastructure along this part of Commerce Boulevard can support the proposed expansion. And I will go through the review that I did quickly for code compliance, and that is on page 17 of 23 in the packet. So the chapter 1131.03 establishes several review criteria for conditional use permit requests within the city. I'm not going to go through and read all of these, but I will say after reviewing these criteria, the compliance with the comprehensive plan and the generalized kind of use standards that it establishes, I didn't see any concerns from a planning standpoint in terms of the impacts for proposed use or the facility expansion. And with that, I did want to go over on page 20 of 23 of the packet. I did recommend 2 conditions. They're fairly minor in my opinion, but I'm from the applicant if they have comments about this. The 2 comments are the gravel drives illustrated within the setback areas on the site plan, for those to be removed once the overall facility expansion is complete. And the second one would be that air filtration systems similar to the existing filtration systems on the building are used within this expansion as well to minimize any off-site odors and things like that. Those are the 2 conditions that I'm recommending, but with that, I'm happy to hear any questions from you all or from the applicant or the public in attendance.
Let's go first to the applicant. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
If you would like to present, come on up to the stand, please. You can kind of go through your.
Trevor, you talked about everything, or most things I was going to speak about.
No worries, thank you. Of course.
Same drawing. One of the things you just mentioned was the gravel access drive. And yes, that is part of our plan, once the construction is done, to remove that, put it back to green space.
Perfect.
And then the other thing you mentioned was the gravel access drive. And yes, that is part of our plan, once the construction is done, to remove that, put it back to green space.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect.
I'm sure everyone's aware of the project, knows where it is on Commerce, but a couple of photos taken the other day. This one from the north entry, close to where Tech's expansion is now going on. Looking back, looking through the security fence, which was been mentioned as well. The security fence will, obviously with the expansion change, but it will still be put back into place, would have to be anyway with the state requirements. The second drawing is really from the second entry on the other side of the pond. One thing I wanted to note and talk about was the gray siding here. This is a pre-engineered metal building. The first building was a Butler building. Second building was supplied by American Buildings. This expansion will be American Buildings as well, so it will all blend. It'll all, I mean, it will look like one building when we're done. So I've actually been a part of this process since 2014. This is the third time we've been here for this. It's always been planned as a phased build-out. In 2014, we built the first 17,000 square feet of the building, 5,000 office, 12,000 light manufacturing. In 14, we came back with a 15,000-foot expansion, which, dealing with Apex and OGT at that time, they actually ended up moving out of the building to another building within the park, and which is when the Curaleaf team came into the building. So we're now working with the Curaleaf team with this expansion as well. And Trevor, you mentioned parking. We've basically we'll be doubling the parking, and we're way over the code minimums for that. In 2018, I guess really it was, when we met with the fire department, Chief Wright's team, they mentioned that with this expansion, we would have to put a fire lane around the building for them, which we are showing, and along with a fire line and 4 hydrants. So none of this has been shared, obviously, with the fire department yet, but we're ready to do that. Our civil design is basically done. We've met with the power co-op company out there as well, talking about the power requirements, working through that. That's what this red line is on my drawing, where we would be picking up the power. The transformers will go behind the building, so that they actually will be out of sight. No one will see that. You mentioned the pond expansion. I think that's actually, obviously true as well. We have an erosion control drawing that the perimeter of the building will all have a silt fence. We're also protecting the pond as well, because we will be driving beside the pond as we're, building the building. We're doing that really in our best effort to stay out of the day-to-day operations of Curaleaf in their facility. So we think that's the best plan. The structure, again, pre-engineered metal building, so that's a steel structure with a siding, a metal siding, slate gray. Phil Claggett's been the architect since day one out of Newark with North Point, Ohio. He has brought some elevation drawings that, if you would like to see them, but quite honestly, it's going to look like those drawings, except a little larger. Right. Have I forgotten anything, Phil? You covered. Do you have any questions of us or of Curaleaf?
I do.
Go ahead,
I'll
Ben.
default if
Go ahead.
anybody else
Go
does.
ahead. Get started us off.
So the massing, it sounds good, the massing, that's going to be harmonious with the other buildings that are there, so that's good to hear. The height, roof line gonna be the same?
The roof line will match. Glad you mentioned that, though. There will be some equipment up on the roof, but it still is within the, is it 40 feet? So it's within the requirements.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah.
And it's good, fire department has mentioned that and they're aware of it, because a lot of the questions, you know, we try and default to make sure that folks are aware of the fire department requirements and stuff
Sure.
like that. You talked about parking as well and being well above the minimums. Parking has been something that we've talked about a lot over the years, and just putting it out there, not knowing exactly what the needs are for the parking. Just continue to put a bug in people's ears that we try and maintain green space where we can. So again, you're above the minimums, that's perfect, that meets code. But I think we've had conversations as a group that if we can preserve green space and not pave, that would be a welcome addition to any site and probably cheaper in the long run. But if it's needed for operations and what have you, by all means. But if we try to give direction to err on the side of protecting green space
Well,
when and where
in
we can.
actuality as well, the fire lane around the back of the building is shown as a stone drive.
Okay.
Now, so we are not putting asphalt back there.
Perfect. All right, good to
And we're
hear.
headed more towards a low minimum, or a low maximum than we are towards a hard minimum on parking.
Yeah.
So with, you know, with islands in the center, with trees to kind of block out the asphalt sprawl that business usually brings with it.
This is parking, where this parking is going, quite honestly, with what's going on in Tech,
Yeah.
you won't even see it.
So my understanding is there's gonna be gravel parking, is that what you're saying?
No. Oh, the fire lane, so the access lane for the fire department, they will come off asphalt at a certain point along the back of the building. And then it will be stone until they come around the building and hit asphalt again. In lieu of putting an asphalt drive all the way around the building. And again, the fire department hasn't seen this yet. They may say they want asphalt. I don't know.
What's the interpretation from the city as far as, my understanding is we don't allow any gravel.
That's what we're just,
But I don't know, this seems like it's a little gray, I don't know, like,
Well,
did you
I
guys?
was gonna wait till you all are done. That was gonna be one call out I was gonna have for the applicant. And when they go through the zoning process, but we can definitely have this discussion now. So our city code requires an impervious surface for any parking lots, driveways, access, movement points,
Okay.
loading truck zones, things like that. Since this would be considered a driveway, that would meet the qualification for an impervious surface. So for our code, it would be required that it is some type of impervious surface, which would define it, I believe, in our code is concrete or asphalt. So is that what you're looking at?
No, but that generally are what are considered dust-free surfaces.
So that may be a provision that on your plans and when you submit to the city would have been flagged as an issue for the zoning permit to be issued. It would have had to be compliant with the provision in our parking lot requirements. So that's the one thing that I saw that I was gonna bring up. I can have a sidebar with you later if that's not agreeable. I'm always available to ask for,
So if that's gonna be a requirement,
you can put it in.
then it may behoove you to remove some of the paving for the parking potentially and repurpose that for the impervious surface that would need to be around the site for the fire department access, but just a point of consideration.
With the parking, what we have tried to do is meet the goal of the applicant and their hiring in the
Okay.
future.
Sure,
So that's where we landed on, that's why we landed on the numbers.
that makes sense. Okay. So it sounds like that's a piece that we can take away for the next step, not necessarily a consideration for this step, is that what you're saying?
I would recommend that because there are a couple of different ways that could be met, i.e. the applicant could just say, yeah, sure, we'll pave it, that's not a problem. They could come in and request a variance to allow a non-dust-free surface to be used in this scenario because it's for fire department access. So I would not recommend making a condition
Yep.
specifically tied to it.
Because it's this use condition that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and it's not a use condition, it's a COA condition.
I do have a couple other questions with respect to the standards in 113103,
Fire.
if that's all right, unless anybody had anything else.
Go for it.
Sorry, wait, what
I
did you
did,
say?
but I can wait.
I'd say 113103, I was going to go through a couple questions I had from the conditional use standards.
The only one I had was E, so feel free to go through 'em.
So looking at B with the hazardous, maintain will not be hazardous to the health, safety, and welfare of the existing neighborhood and the total community. Knowing that this is a pretty large expansion, this is going to be used for cultivation, is that correct? Yeah. One of the requests from staff as a consideration is air filtration systems similar to existing equipment used to mitigate any off-site odors. Is that an issue? Not an issue at all?
You guys mentioned the current air ventilation system you have now. You're gonna continue, it's gonna expand into the new facility?
From what I understand, it's actually an upgrade now, we're 5 years down the road.
If you wanted to come up, you absolutely can.
Well, not that I want to come up, but
Right.
we are deploying pretty advanced technology for odor mitigation. And we can supply a description of those policies, if not only policies, but equipment. If you'd like to have that, we can submit it for the record.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that would make us more comfortable. This was something that we talked about also when we had our site visit through council. It's something that neighboring businesses and neighborhoods have brought up over there. Under certain wind conditions, there's definitely an odor that drafts. So it's, an upgrade in the facilities is definitely merited.
But yeah, that was just a question I had, just because of the sheer size of the expansion, understanding the operation, that there would be additional challenges to the volume that's being processed in that facility relative to that.
Provide that for the record. We'll provide-
Hey, Ben. And on D, because it is a marijuana facility, during the construction, is there any safety concerns you guys have?
Well, again, we're trying to do this to, as much as possible, stay completely out of the day-to-day operations. And I believe my plan today will do that. So we don't have to make that connection to the existing building as far as foot traffic until almost the very end of the project. And then they have 24-hour security as well. I mean, so, we'll be working with Joel, I'm sure, to make sure that any issues that he has, we address.
Just-
As a point of order, if you wouldn't mind coming up, because this is all on the record.
We just want to make sure it's recorded.
Got it, no worries. Just to be sure we are addressing the question that you had on security. Are you talking about site security during construction?
Yeah, I've never had my phone called so much in my zoning career as this. Because anything that has to do with marijuana, I guess people in my neighborhood are curious about it. So, I'm just curious, I think things could come up because of the kind of things you make there. So would
Got it.
any security issues, delay, it would cause disruption to our services?
Got it. So there's no consumption allowed on the property? Anywhere, it's a state rule, it's a Department of Cannabis Regulation. So, and I gotta believe none of the workers are consuming anything at that time when they're working as well. And plus Steve said that there is surveillance on the operation as it is.
Yeah, and then the last minute connection.
And you haven't had any security issues on the site,
No,
major security issues previously?
no.
I mean, no break-ins, we have video, fencing, on-site security, internal security, internal cameras. It's pretty buttoned up.
Yeah.
What was the specific concern that people had?
190 cameras.
Well, the
190.
first one was the air ventilation. They
Yeah.
just-
I would say in terms of construction
I just think they
security,
just need
we've
to
already
make people
gone
take
over that with Steve's company to ensure safety on site during construction.
during construction.
We do a lot of construction
Yeah, well,
around the country, so we
facility is
ensure
under
that there's
construction. I
a lot
work
of
here.
safety.
Here's what they're doing. The fact that it's gonna be open.
There's a lot of
up,
safety,
it's gonna be down.
safety first.
Just, I mean, it sounds like they thought about it, so it's good.
Yeah.
And I didn't know they had 24-hour security and stuff.
My name is Paul Schultekas. I'm the division president for the Central Region for the company. And if you take a look at the way the program is designed by the state, they've kind of mirrored other programs around the country. And their biggest concern is diversion. So the way, we can't disclose too much to you guys about how everything's laid out in the facility, but I can tell you, the minute somebody penetrates that fence or comes on the other side of the fence, police are deployed. We can't take the risk of any diversion occurring in that facility, whether it's in Illinois, Ohio, Maryland, Maine. We operate a real discrete facility. That's why you won't see a lot of layouts of where the cameras are at. When press comes in, which we do allow every now and then, they can't take pictures in the facility per DCC codes. We operate under really strict rules in all the countries, but in all the states that we operate in. We are international also too. So just wanted to put you
Well,
at
I
ease.
appreciate it. I didn't know that, and
No,
I didn't know you had
it's-
24-hour security, and the fact that you already planned for this, you know, you're already thinking
Oh, absolutely.
security-wise about, because that could be, you know, I mean, be a
Just to
big
give you
deal
an
in town.
example, all our drivers, we have to man them with 2 people. You know, most logistics company have 1 driver and they can go out. We can't leave a facility unless you have 2 licensed registered drivers in that facility. And then when they end up at another facility where we're dropping off the product at a dispensary, whether it's in Cincinnati or Cleveland, they have to pull into a port, a secure port. So the doors are open, that vehicle goes in, closes the door, and then we unload. That's just how strict the rules are, how we operate. So you'd be impressed. I mean, it's, I have a lot of same questions of family and friends that ask me the same question, and they're like, guys, it's not what you think it is. It's super tight. Our rules, like for testing, for instance, Pharmacopoeia has 10,000 parts per million when they test their products. We're under 1,000 parts per million. That's how super tight we operate, because you're ingesting the product, whether it's a flour product or an edible product or a liquid product. And I have to say, the state has done a great job with this program here in the state of Illinois. I'm out of Illinois, so. And that's a super compliant program also. I mean, we all complained about it when we launched in 2014, but we all fell in line by the guardrails of what the government agency set up for us. And we all operate really tight ships. You'd be impressed.
Yeah.
I think two of us, you've been on the tour over there.
I don't think so, no.
Were you?
Wasn't
Council
Apex.
didn't go through when you were there?
The Apex.
I was Apex.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're more than welcome.
So I've been on the tour recently.
Love to have you.
I can tell you, yeah.
Sean's been there.
Sean's been here recently,
I'm
and-
Joel Hatfield, op manager for the facility, and I was gonna volunteer that if anybody wants to come in, we can work through Teresa and set up a time to come through for a walkthrough as well.
Yeah, appreciate that.
You're more than welcome to it. You'll see the standards that we put in place. There's man traps everywhere. You can't get into one room unless that door closes behind you, just in case somebody's following you into that room or an intruder comes in. We protect the entire facility.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps you out a little bit there.
Yeah, so it sounds like the facility's gonna be still under lockdown until
Oh, yeah.
that.
Until the last minute.
Till the
when we
last
cut in.
second,
Yes.
till the whole building's secure.
Yeah, because
The
otherwise
fence
then
is
we'd have
back
to
up.
register all of them coming through our facility.
Well, that's what I was thinking about too, yeah.
Yeah, they have to be escorted. So
Now
whenever.
they're gonna have to go around
If you
it.
come in, you'd be walked around by a licensed person in the facility.
We
Makes
also
sense.
have tremendous risk of biosecurity as well, just because of the nature of what we do. If you do come in for a visit, you'll see how, important it is for us to maintain that biosecurity risk in the garden especially. And we can lose whole crops, whole harvest to biosecurity risks. So that's another main factor why we want to keep this separated as long as we possibly can.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant from the board?
Yes.
All right.
Well,
Can I just pause? I have a procedural question that I'd like to interject for Trevor and Sean, that 113102 says all information required for a zoning certificate shall be presented with the application for conditional use. So I'm wondering, we said the trees and the driveways and stuff would be addressed later, but my interpretation of this is that should be addressed prior.
What was that code section? Sorry, I'm.
113102, requirement A, application for conditional use.
Will be harmonious.
Says all of the information required for a zoning certificate pursuant to 4113103 shall be submitted, would be submitted with the application for conditional use.
Sorry, no, you're-
That's what you get when I do it in my truck. When I go through my paperwork in my truck, that's what you get.
What is 41131.03?
Sounds like a typo to me.
Oh, I guess, yeah, sorry. That's just an extra 4 in front of it.
So I think what he's
I don't have that in my
referencing
book, so I don't know what that is either, but I'm guessing it's the next stage.
That doesn't say anything to me about trees.
So that's 1-1.
Oh,
Take out
I
the
read that
full
as,
then.
you have to have enough detail to be able to do that review, which, in my opinion, we did. I mean, I was able to write a staff report. That could be clarified, though, in the future. That's a good catch.
Sure.
I mean, that's how I interpret it, is you'd have enough information to be able to assess the conditions for, the standards for conditional use.
So go through me, so it's straight in my head how the process works again. So they'll have to come back, we approve this conditional use, and they come back with the rest of the plan for,
Review.
No, they wouldn't need to come back.
Design review for the COA.
they
They
come
would
back
just
to
need
design review board with the COA to get all.
That they would have to
Yes.
come back through for, but as far as the zoning certificate, as long as it meets all the internal requirements associated with light manufacturing, they would not need to come back before this board unless there was a variance or something along those lines that needed to populate in order for the procedural process to move on. So,
So the zoning certificate, and I apologize, just to get it straight in my head, the zoning certificate qualifications are different than the COA qualifications that we're talking about.
very much so.
Okay, so the zoning certificate, which is referenced here, I don't have this code, since it's a typo, I couldn't look it up to see. So we're comfortable with those are probably met in this circumstance?
The way I read that, it references like 4131. I think that 4 was erroneously put in there when the code was uploaded online. But what it points to is the section directly below, which are the general standards for conditional uses. So in my opinion, 1131.02 is.
Oh, okay, it's right below it.
It's
No.
yeah, make sure there's enough detail provided that you can conduct that review. And
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I'm good, I'm good with that. I thought it was referencing the
No, that's
COA process, so I apologize there. Thank you. Then let's get back to, we can go back to your questions. for
Yep,
the
just a couple more. Just a couple more questions as we're going through those standards. So I know I asked the question about, as we're talking about security, I asked the question back to staff about whether or not there have been any police department runs or any issues out there to the current site as it is right now, knowing that there will be a substantial increase to what's happening there. So were you able to follow up?
I'm ready to answer that.
Go for it.
If you're
Yeah.
ready for an answer.
Please and thank you.
So I checked with the chief yesterday, and I figured I'd verbally give it to you today. So I asked the chief yesterday, I said, do you have any extraordinary number of runs associated with this facility in comparison to similar sites in that specific area? He said, no. Probably on the lower end, because of the insecurity that they employ on their own. So if anything, from a statistical standpoint, it seems like there is less movement from our police department out there. Historically, he didn't have a tremendous amount of backlog of data, but nothing on his end threw any red flags up associated with this particular facility. Great question.
I assumed as much, given the on-site security and the 190 cameras that are on site. But I got to ask the question, so I appreciate you following up on
Can I
that.
stick one in there too? I've got one on that same subsection C, with the water usage, being a grow facility. Have those conversations taken place about what the water usage, anticipated water usage would be? And I just want to make sure that we have that current capacity and that it fits, that capacity fits in with our other projects that we've committed to.
Another great question. Commission Member Lee had the same question, so you guys are doing well. You guys are all coagulating together, so that's wonderful. We looked at the past and prior history. What we believe on an average right now is about 32,000 gallons a month. If they were to double that and be it at 64,000 gallons per month, that is something we could absorb into our facility. I'm sorry, yes, 64,000 per month. We produce 1 million gallons per day. So it will be fractionable, but the more you start to compound other sites and other uses, it does start to have an effect. So this is considered probably a moderate to high user, but not a data center by any means, or any type of production facility that utilizes water in the process. I say that lightly because obviously the water is it's for the process, for the growth, but it's not to the effect of if you had a food processing company come in and they needed to utilize that water for some type of food manufacturing, where I've had requests, they need 200,000 or 300,000 or 500,000 gallons a day for that type of processes. So this should be sufficient. We've had conversation internally, and nothing on here gives us any issue with the amount of consumption of water that they're gonna have.
In real general, can you give us the percentage of capacity that we're using, like currently, or
Sure,
and
so-
maybe committed? Like if you have
On an
I know
annual
it's
basis,
a lot spring on you at one without.
Got it all in the head. Water and sewer is something I know cold at this point. So right now, we have 1 million gallon facility per day. On average, if you were to annualize that average, you're looking at around 600 to 650,000 of consumption. Now, during the summer months, we obviously have a peak because of water usage for lawns or various other items. So sometimes we
My
can.
lawn needs some water.
What's that?
My lawn needs some water.
It does. So, we could get into that range of the 750s, which is obviously why we're looking at a plant expansion, knowing that we're starting to get close to that threshold, as well as some expansions that are happening. And then the anticipated PD district that's coming online, having enough water for that particular development as well. So also some cost saving and use saving measures have been employed over the last 2 years, which have brought down our average annual usage considerably. So that's been helpful for us to be able to not need to build a facility quite as quickly as projected, and we're able to walk that a little bit slower, but we're still walking it through the process, and we'll probably have a new plan, all things going as planned, probably 2026, in the timeframe that it takes to construct and do all the engineering. So that's exciting.
Without going too far down the rabbit hole, has the PD district given us any estimates on water requirements?
We have a broad spectrum. It'll be included in the infrastructure agreement that we have to provide, and the water reservations that are existing over there. So there's a range at this point, anywhere from 400,000 to 700,000 gallons.
So that will
Entire-
require some sort of an expansion then, okay.
And
Are
that's a phase, I'm
Are you
sorry.
planning to double, or what is the percentage increase that you're expecting?
Yeah, at this point, it would be doubling the size of the garden.
Well, you said double, so I was like, but it looks like a huge addition, so.
But the building is actually larger than the canopy we're gonna deploy in there, because we're gonna hit a maximum.
So it's not all canopy use. And they do have Joel, I guess, maybe the irrigation system.
I was gonna say, do you have a conservation system, I'm assuming, where you can reuse water? Yeah.
Recirculate.
And take it back and treat it and put it back. So it's not like everything's going down the drain.
Condensate recovery.
Did we have any other questions on that subsection C?
Yes.
All right, back to Ben.
Not on that one.
We'll let you keep rolling.
No, I just, talking about, and you asked the question that I was thinking of too, is that what percentage are we actually, how do we get to the double? Is that a yes, or is that a conversation? I assumed it was a conversation, but curious the math behind the scenes. On the flip side, when you talk about the waste aspect of it, how much additional waste is that going to be from a sewer plant processing perspective then? Is there anything going down the drain? Usually when we talk about water and sewer, it's 1-to-1 coming in, going out. Is it any more stress going to be put on the sewer plant with respect to the additional cultivation needs at the site?
But not much going out. Growing, is that?
So what we're doing is we're creating photosynthesis inside the room, so any of the condensate that's created due to the photosynthesis is reclaimed and the condensate is reclaimed and then put in through a filtration system and, you know, it's reprocessed. It's part of our green initiative as well.
Okay. So any organic waste or anything like that that is generated by means of the cultivation process, there's a separate disposal process associated with that?
Yes,
Okay. And none of that would necessarily see through the sewer systems within the city? It would
No.
require, okay. I assume that's a very controlled process as well?
yes. And that can be tested on both ends, incoming water and then the outgoing water at any time.
Perfect.
And we do monitor that.
Okay, all right, very good. So PD check, water sewer check. The only other question that I had then was with respect to traffic, knowing that you're doubling the size of the cultivation, and the traffic in and out of that site, is there a percentage increase in traffic that you would see with respect to employment or logistics to move product in, move product out, things like that?
Speak to the size. Yeah. We're currently sitting around 60 employees right now and anticipating at full capacity potentially being up to 150. We don't see a tremendous amount of traffic now as far as congestion with in and out with the employees. Logistics, as far as deliveries go, we currently have 4 vans. We only operate 2 at the maximum right now per day. We anticipate that doubling as well. We will get to the point where we'll be using 4 or 5 vans. But again, that process is a very discrete process where the vans are pulled in, loaded up on the fence and all that. I don't really see any increase in traffic due to that.
So you talk about vans, we're not talking about semi-trucks or anything like that? We're talking about
We
box
do have
trucks.
semi-trucks that come in and unload products and things like that for supplies, but I'm talking about our logistics and
Yeah.
our delivery vans,
Mhm.
our unmarked vans that, small cargo vans,
So
basically.
the main increase of traffic with respect to the expansion is most likely going to be from additional employment?
Employment, yeah.
Okay, okay. All right. I'd say for me, that satisfies everything within the 113103, just from a curiosity standpoint, but I don't see any need to not approve the condition.
The only thing I had left, obviously a good part of it's gonna come in under the COA with any mounding, street trees, sidewalks, anything like that. What did we decide on text sidewalk and how that's gonna come down through? I know they came in for a variance.
You all approved a variance for, well, it was for street trees and for a sidewalk. So I would have to recheck the minutes on what was approved, not having that.
Those will coincide.
Yes, with the expansion that Tech did specifically to the area associated with it. This is slightly different. They had a permit that was in pre-COVID. There was some timeframes. There was an extension on the expansion. This is a new COA application, not an expansion of a current permit. So with this particular submittal, they'll have to go under the requirements of sidewalks, street trees, landscaping, all of the other provisions that are in the 1187 section of our code.
Right. Buffering is always a big one for me. I know the property next to this, it's light manufacturing, no plans for it yet, so I wanna make sure we get our buffering right in there. That's always important to me, especially since you don't know what's gonna be on the other side. That back corner, I don't know if we can bring that up on the map, on the board easily. Looking at that, I see, obviously in our packet, we've got a lot of small font in there. Not always the easiest thing to read, but I see a 25-foot side setback listed in here. Our minimum being a 35. Now I know if you do, there's a caveat in there for a 15-foot on one side, but I think you have to make it up on the other. I just want to make sure that we're going to be okay with the setback on that back corner.
Now we'll see him again, right?
Well, if not, we just have to have a variance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that should be problematic. The code reads the setback's 35 feet with a minimum of 15 feet on one side.
Right.
So I think the way the site plan's illustrated currently, they meet.
So you just have to make it up on the other side, right?
Yeah, which they more than do,
Okay.
so, yeah. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
That was, yeah, just not being an engineer or architect, obviously, and a lot of small font. I want to make sure that we're doing that the right way. So,
Need glasses.
yeah, I need glasses maybe. I'm getting old.
Good strategy, make it so small you can't read.
Yeah, make it so small I can't read it. But, no, I just want to make sure that we're good there.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough to get, because they have that fire lane, it's gonna be tough to get any kind of buffering plus a fire lane plus a building right there. So I wanna make sure that we're doing the best we can there. I know it's tight.
Site plan improvement will come with the conversation with COA though, right?
Yeah, but the one question I have, if you would like, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but we're talking about buffering. It seems to be a point of emphasis. For the light manufacturing district, I believe this site is currently surrounded by light manufacturing, so
It is.
a large amount of buffering is only required whenever it abuts or sides up to a residential piece. So the buffering
Today, that's late manufacturing.
would not be intense along the side or the back or the other side. It would really fall into, dumpster enclosures as well as street tree provisions. I would have to unpack 1187 specifically, but I do know that if it doesn't abut any residential, the landscaping and buffering requirements are rather minimal. Whenever the steel ceilings building went in, it did in fact abut a residential section here. So there was a tremendous amount of screening that was provided here through trees on this side, but you'll notice that the expansion did not require any type of buffering on the backside because it was up against a light manufacturing district as well as on this side. However, they were expected to provide the canopy trees associated with the parking lots, and you'll see those in the little bump outs.
Right.
And green space that were called out. So if buffering is something that you would like to see increased, I would.
Well, this is more since we are under a conditional use, this is more of a site-specific area, because if you scroll out on that there, we don't have our zoning map up, and I know it's hard to get to, and you might fly to it. I hope you do. There you go. Today, that's light manufacturing on the other side, but I know there's been conversation recently of possibly going another route with that, possibly other things expanding or not expanding. So I'm always one that when you are going through a project, if you think there's any ambiguity in the future, you make sure that you do it while you have it in front of you. So that's just something I want to be cognizant of, because if the use on that other property changes, you may have residential there in the future. So I just want to make sure we're doing it right while we have it in front of us.
I think that would be incumbent on a future applicant, not the
It would.
current applicant.
It would, we could fix it then too, but burden of
I don't
hand.
think you would require mounding in this, it doesn't make sense.
I know.
Because I agree, when we talk about,
Not necessarily mounding,
we're talking about
but
differentiation,
trees.
it's different uses between the two parcels, specifically residential, agricultural, residential, commercial, et cetera. In no way would I advocate any mounding or anything like that, because this is what they're zoned right now.
we couldn't fit mounding in there if we had to.
Are you saying trees in the back
But
line?
we don't
But
need
at least trees or buffering of to some extent is what I'm advocating for.
On the back end of the property? Agree to disagree, but okay.
Wouldn't mind. I'm not against trees.
That'll be something that comes up in the COA. I just want to make sure that we took a look at it in this group.
But it shouldn't. But okay.
Our only shot is to
Like I
put a
said,
condition on it.
while you have it in front of you, you make sure you say something.
That's the same zoning
Do you
district.
guys have thoughts on that, on adding a condition for trees in the back? I'm not
We
opposed to
can't
it.
really, but
You can.
How I'll
yeah.
preface this is, in a conditional use, it does give you some latitude to require additional items because of the nature of the business or the use. So if you were going to require
This is the
additional
place to do it.
screening, I think it would have to really emphasize the differentiation between the use that this particular applicant is employing as a comparison to other permitted uses within the district. Is that out of line, Trevor? Am I speaking to that, or am I out of line?
No, I mean, conditional uses allow some additional latitude, however, I
What
would
Ben's,
discourage
what
this
Ben's
body
saying is not wrong.
from
I'm saying
recommending those sorts of.
if they change the usage on
conditions when
that,
the surrounding
there'll
zoning is
have to
all the
be
same.
buffering and it'll be on them. Like, you're not wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I like to do things while I have it in front of me.
I think it's
agree.
forward thinking.
It's not incumbent on.
I don't think it's a bad idea, and I think the trees would be nice, but I think it's probably unfair to ask of it now when it's the
Right.
same property beside it. And if somebody decides to change that use of the property beside it after this is already there,
It's on
then
them.
it's on them to
Correct.
say, okay, I want a buffer. Like,
Or a buffer would be required.
if I'm going to like build homes here.
Buffer would be required at that point by means of how the code is written. It's
I mean, it's a nice
incompatible.
to have. Like, if you
Incompatible
want to
with
put
zoning
trees, we'd
designation.
love trees.
Well, it would require them to have buffering. But if today that was residential and this was light manufacturing, you're gonna have a double buffer area in there. Just by nature of how the zoning works, but we don't have to do it. It's something that they can talk about in the COA.
Sure, yep.
Because I think we're gonna talk about parking and possibly moving some things around anyway, so it's something that they'll talk about.
From a use standpoint, as the application's been submitted, I don't know then if the first condition that was put in by staff would be relevant with respect to the gravel parking lot. I can see where the air filtration piece and the submission of the system would be applicable relative to the use, but the gravel lot, I don't know if it would be.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think it's fair to remove that condition because the site plan will have to,
Right,
the site plan associated with the zoning certificate will have to illustrate the in-state conditions
Right.
of the site, so therefore, based on what the applicant stated, they are going to remove that after construction is over. That site plan would ultimately govern that, yeah. So I think if you all wanna take the second condition, or the first condition, if that's what it was, that's good, fine.
yeah, I would just say and probably restate the condition that we have in there is air filtration system similar to the existing equipment used at the facility to mitigate any off-site odor shall be used in the facility expansion and submission by the applicant of the system being used as.
Yeah, I think that's the main
proposed.
one for all of us.
I would like to have that on record as far, I'm not an expert in air filtration systems, but if there's something you have like particles per square meter of air or something like that, that you guys are committing to filtering out, because we have had in this board at previous meetings, some comments about the smell coming off of there, so if we could have that submitted with those kind of engineering metrics that we can at least use as baseline to hold you accountable to, I think that would be a good
It's fair.
methodology to go by. Did you guys have any other questions, Steve?
Ben covered a lot.
So I want to go back to the removal of the gravel drive. So we're taking that off because it's not gonna, we're assuming it's not gonna be approved, or it's not gonna be.
Taking it
part of
off
the final
because
plan?
it'd be covered in COA and the site plan and not necessarily part of the use conditionality. In so much as even in this point, it's the temporary use. It just hasn't been defined as to what the end result will be. It's what Trevor said, the end result is what.
So we're not making any.
COA covers anyway.
Approvals or of any gravel driveways. I agree with that. Okay.
Just the use condition for the site.
Yeah.
So, I think that if no other commissioners have any comment, would anybody like to make the motion? Or I can make the motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. Do we open up the public comment or not? What do you think?
Do we have any public comment on this issue that anybody came and hasn't got to speak yet? Okay. We'll
I would
close.
go ahead and make the motion to approve application 814-5 condition use permit for Curaleaf 150 Commerce Boulevard with the condition of usage of air filtration systems being similar to the existing equipment being used at the current facility to mitigate any off-site odors. And that should be used in the facility expansion, as well as the necessity of submission by the applicant of the system being used for public record.
I will second it.
Ben Lee.
Yes.
Kristen Hurst.
Yes.
Steve Dyer.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Jesse Cobble.
Yes.
Can I make one comment? Thank you for your preparedness. Thank you for the level of detail with the application, with answering the questions, being prepared to answer the questions. There are a lot of times that we'll get packets in here of a very similar nature, of a very sensitive nature as well. And the information isn't always as readily available as what you've provided. So appreciate the attention to detail, and appreciate what you submitted and your readiness.
Thank you.
This public notice that's in the packet, that goes out, what are our public notice for this conditional use requirements? It's just,
It was sent out certified.
Yeah, I think, let me pull up the code here.
since we've been on this public notice thing, I didn't see
Yeah.
any contiguous property owners having to be notified, which seems like it would be relevant in this situation.
They're listed in there. Page 13 of 23 within the packet.
Well, it's been the discussion previously. They get listed, but do they get notified?
I will tell you, before I look at it,
There is no notification requirement on this, for this.
conditional use doesn't have near the stringent requirements
Yeah.
associated with the public notice, because I'm hypothesizing. It is not a variance, it's not a zoning map amendment, it's a conditional use that's already defined in our zoning content. So it should be somewhat expected, but there is some public notice provision. Notice shall be given at least 7 days prior to the public hearing, published with the village webpage. I believe that is the only requirement. Property owners listed may be notified, so notified 7 days prior. So they may be notified at least 7 days prior to the hearing by certified mail, return receipt requested.
And that's the conversation we've had before, is the shall on the website and the may in the certified letter. And if it is not received, or for whatever reason there's a delay in the certified letter and not signed for, that doesn't inhibit the body from making a determination on the applicant at the time that it's needed to be made.
I could check with Terry. I do believe he sent out letters to the property owners. We have one of them here. He could probably tell me whether that did happen or didn't. I see somewhat of a head nod, so.
I would just like to make a recommendation for a code update that shall or may be changed to shall, so the notice is given out in the future. I don't think that prohibits this, has anything to do with this current process, but I think that stuff like this is important, that notice be given to contiguous property owners. Depending on if does anybody else on the commission have any comments on that?
We need to take a look at just the notification processes across the board, make sure that we're good with them, because we haven't looked at, I mean, they probably haven't been reviewed in a while. So I think it's relevant for us to take a look at those.
Last time we looked at it, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and we went through and added in
Yeah.
the sign that we pulled from the proposal code number 4.
So my question, so
To
then,
put up in front of the parcel that's being,
the question is, are we gonna take the time to do a full review, or in this case, it's a pretty simple recommendation that we could make a motion to council to update that change in one word and be done with this section at least, would be it's an easy win.
Are you saying it's required to be sent, but it's not required that it's
Right now, the
signed?
code says we may send contiguous.
May in one spot and shall in another?
No, it's just may, and I'd like to change that to shall, so the contiguous.
Is it required in
properties-
one place and may is like an additional, like, option?
Just for conditional use, it's may.
shall on the website and may in the certified letter.
But, I mean, so in clarification, may, like, okay.
That doesn't
If we're-
sound like a requirement.
We're either
So
gonna
what was
send
the
it out or we're
intention?
not, right? We're either gonna send it out or
Was it
or
intent, well,
not.
I'm wondering, was it intended to be optional or intended to be like a requirement? I don't know.
As far as I understand.
There's a lot to be desired in our code when it comes to these public notice requirements, from the historic perspective. And I think Ryan's right, we probably need to have a better, we need to comprehensively address to make them more
Well, what I'm
standard
saying
across
is, I don't know
all.
which one to change. Should it be shall or should it be may?
So I said, I think we pump the brakes on it, take a look at them across the board, make sure they're what we want, and
The problem is with the certified mail, is that if somebody doesn't sign it, there's a claim that wasn't received, did the city do the due diligence?
Are you putting yourself in a position?
Right.
Well, we can show the form that it was sent.
That's fine, but they still weren't notified. So,
I think we could probably. talk
that's where
about
it comes
offline.
down to just, as with anything in zoning, it comes down to the definition.
I mean, a lot of
I don't know
things,
if you would put yourself in a legal position.
a lot of things legally,
Certified letter is required, then do you put yourself in like a defense position if it's required and then it wasn't received?
So, Sean, let me go back. So it says we may send certified letters to the contiguous property owners? Okay. My thought would just be send a regular mail to contiguous property owners. So,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
do we want to, the question is, my preference that we
we want to make sure
update
people are
this section
notified.
now, right?
Like, that's the goal, right?
So we
But you
could
don't want
change
to put
this
yourself in
section.
a position that you're like delaying things if somebody's on vacation.
This
for
references
for 6
this references, Sean, a different, overall notification provision, is that right? It's not just this,
So this one is specific, and
so we could update that, can we update this easily and change it to shall be notified?
I've got you on the screen, drafted, ready to be sent to Teresa. If you would like to make the motion to recommend to council from the Planning and Zoning Commission that the following revisions
Look at
be
you
made
being
to section
efficient.
113109, I have it attached, and I can forward this to Teresa. May shall be strucken, or will be strucken, and shall be inserted.
And we could even take out the certified and just say regular mail too.
I would recommend that.
I would recommend,
It's
regular mail.
that's
Yes,
my
Most
preference.
places I have worked, if they send mail, it is not certified.
Before doing this, I would recommend that the commission understand the legal ramifications.
Do we have certified, so we have proof that it's sent, I
Anything
guess?
is made or changed, because there is a distinct difference between shall and may, and
Well-
responsibility on how it's worded.
We're only making a recommendation to council.
Yeah,
That's what I said.
You can, I'll vet it through legal in the meantime, but if you want to make a recommendation.
I don't know
And
that
whatever,
we
I
need
think
to make a
I'll make a motion to make that recommendation, and whatever legal says on certified, whether they like the certified or the regular mail, my preference would just be not, I don't care about certified, but if they think that shields us from liability, that we have a send receipt, then that probably would be the way to go, but, so I'll go ahead and make that motion if anybody wants to second it.
I don't have a strong opinion either way.
I will second it. Now we have to make a decision.
Jesse Cobble,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
No,
Kristen Hurst,
Yes,
Steve Dyer,
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
there you go.
I don't think it'll hurt to have
I have
them
a
look at it.
It's clear,
Just
right?
don't have the
They
info.
can go to council and
Does
come
this
back.
draft
That's fine.
resolution or
Sure.
ordinance have to come to planning and zoning?
Nope. Because they initiated it.
Just checking.
Good.
That's why I just drafted it right now and sent it, so,
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
yes, the resolution.
I
We're
love the
good.
efficiency.
Copy and
We're
paste.
trying. Getting better every day.
All
right.
right, let's
Year and
move
a
on
half, we'll get there.
to
5 years.
number 8, on
Terry's
number
not
6
here,
on our
so
agenda.
for him.
The zoning inspector's report. Zoning, Sean, would you like
Not here.
to highlight anything on that or go over that in lieu of our zoning inspector's attendance?
I don't have anything to add to it unless you have questions. If you do, I can try to answer some of them.
Thank you guys for coming.
Appreciate it.
Couple questions I had, they wouldn't necessarily be for Terry. These might be better safety and service questions, but one comment I had, mowing in Concord East and Raccoon Creek Estates on the lots that haven't been built on yet. Grass is probably about knee high in those areas. And this is the easiest time to keep grass short that we've had all year. So we should probably look into that before it starts raining again.
So areas that Terry needs to look at is Concord Crossing East
Yeah.
and the areas that have not been built upon yet.
Yeah, and then Raccoon Creek Estates there.
Okay.
That's-
I'll let him know. It
That's
needs
the
to
one
be
off
correct.
Benedict, right? I get that confused.
Oh, I thought
I
that
get
was
it
all
confused
developed.
with behind
Is it
Tractor
not
Supply. No, there's still lots that haven't been built on in there. And I drove through,
They're all fine.
I was on the route today, so I was all over town and I just noticed it, cause
That's when all the trouble starts.
that's when all the trouble starts, when I'm driving
You had too
around
much
town.
time on your hands today.
I mean,
Making notes.
No, actually, it is annoying. I would be annoyed if I was in there and it wasn't mowed.
Well, I appreciate Terry doing those,
Yeah.
doing those, because it's not a popular thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's important because no one else is gonna address it.
No one wants
in
to
the
look at
city,
it, so it's a
Tell
good
him
thing.
thanks.
Thanks for
other
being the
thing I
Grim
was gonna
Reaper.
ask
I will
about-
let him know and I will tell him thanks in the same breath.
Yeah.
So that way, the news is delivered with a little bit of honey. So
With joy
That's right.
and
We have
appreciation.
and then, like I said, this might be a safety and service question, but the curb cut in Leafy Dell for the apartments there that goes out on the main road there, Leafy Dell. Is there a schedule for that curb cut? I saw that grading has been done. Obviously, we're a long way away from that, but I didn't know if we need to have a scheduled, if we need to have a schedule for that. Obviously, kids are walking down that sidewalk. I don't know when they'll cut the sidewalk out. Obviously, there's gonna be, before we lose power, I'll try to get this all out.
Yeah, we don't have a timeline on specific
Okay.
infrastructure dates as far as, like any storm structures or sidewalks or, curb cuts or things like that.
I would guess it'll be a multi-week closing of the sidewalk. We wanna try to keep people out of that area. Common sense would dictate that, but you can't legislate common sense.
I don't know that they will close the sidewalk. There's provisions that have to be done, I believe, that necessitate the use of that sidewalk, in some way, so.
It's gonna be a 2-lane driveway cut into there, so.
Yeah, so.
It's not gonna be.
So if they cut it and they
replacing, like-
remove the area and it has to be poured again, it'll be a gravel area that's able to be walked upon. It's not uncommon for transitional pieces to have gravel instead of concrete, which is still a walkable surface.
Handicap accessible.
I'm good with it. I just, obviously, it's a well-traveled route daily for the kids to school. I just wanna make sure we have a plan in place. I already, I know we're,
When the weather's
yeah, do it in the middle of winter when they're not walking anyway, but
Should have sidewalk on the other side,
they
And there
do.
is. That's another.
They do, but
down by the condos.
On the other side of the street where I believe Ryan is referencing, there is a full sidewalk on that side, so
There
if
is.
if that sidewalk.
On either side of Leafy though. Right, I know that.
Needed to be closed, they could redirect, pedestrian traffic.
But there's
you know what I mean, because I don't want kids in a construction area, obviously.
But the only crosswalk is at Parkdale.
What are you talking about?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. There should be sidewalks surrounding the condos to help them
Oh, going out to Curtin
get
Road.
there.
Sounds like safety and service to me.
So
It
they'll
is.
be
I'm
installing.
putting it on the radar now. Some here.
Sure.
And then there's currently a
Won't see
sidewalk.
Sean for another week, so.
There we go. You can't see. There we go. It's helpful if I plug it in. So. Redirected me.
On track.
So sidewalk here, and there is another one on the other side of the street.
Yep.
So, and then this will be
But not all the way to
constructed, a sidewalk through here as part of the requirements for this particular development. They will be installing a sidewalk, gosh, I
They
believe.
will be putting sidewalk there?
Do the condos know that? Cause I thought we voted that down.
Past it.
It passed, didn't it? Or did it get voted down?
I think I voted down.
Requires sidewalk.
They were
Well, It was a
never,
vote.
Yeah,
We'll have to check the meeting minutes.
I'll check.
I believe it got, I don't know.
Why would we not have them put a sidewalk there?
so they were never required to have a sidewalk there for some odd reason, even
Oh,
though
it was already
there's,
like grandfathered in or something?
I guess, when they
The
originally
condos
did
were
it.
built,
Were
there
they
was not
first?
a requirement.
I don't know.
They didn't
Were they
want to put 'em in.
first?
That was a big,
No.
there was a lot of public in here, I remember.
Did you find it?
Meetings.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, they don't want the
I bet I can
sidewalks.
find it.
want kids.
Tell me real quick.
Oh, they don't want kids, but,
Well,
Yeah.
they have
I mean, I
trees,
can't say that I blame them.
they have
but-
trees through there too, where the
That's what it was,
sidewalk would
though.
go, so they would lose all the trees, or the sidewalk would have to go in an
They didn't want
awkward
anyone
spot.
transgressing
Like,
their area.
Rather sidewalk than trees for kids in a school zone.
I guess I
Say
don't.
that till they're your trees.
I'd rather sidewalk for
I know, I know
trees.
about
All right, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
to,
I regret our.
number 7 on the agenda, other business that's not on the agenda.
Do we have anything coming to town that we need to know about?
We got a jewelry store.
Santa Claus is coming to town, I guess.
Do?
I know, I didn't want
About
to
3
say
months.
that.
Santa Claus.
So, gosh, I mean, just the variety of replacement and cycling through of businesses.
Jewelry store.
Yeah, so there's this design review board will see a sign request for a jewelry store. There's also the yarnologist that just located.
Did you
Usually,
say
it's-
yarnologist?
Oh, yeah.
What is that? Is that like a knitting store?
I think it's a knitting store. I don't know. So
Record store too, I believe.
In a record store.
Cross the street.
they have not submitted a
Where's
full
this?
application yet.
Record store's going into old Schultz Hardware.
Cool.
We're getting some like cool stuff coming in.
I mean, I'm excited. I will go there. I don't know if anyone
Where's
else
the
will go
jewelry
there,
store?
but I will go, I will go there.
Jewelry store?
But I'm hoping they do like a
Old Faith
listening
Fellowship.
party or something like that, like
Really?
pull out some old vinyl.
What,
Nice.
the jewelry's going there?
And the barber's coming back to the mercantile store too.
The
Like-
same barber or different
Different
barber?
one.
High-end jewelry
Different
or
barber.
like?
Oh, okay.
A local,
You know me.
local startup barber.
Go down there and get edged up, man.
Wow.
So
Nice.
Get me some lines cut.
Record store, that's neat.
Get me a new fade.
Fancy that.
I think
Not a
used
pawn
books
shop.
too. It's like
Nice.
combo.
That's needed. That's cool. Very good.
Nice.
If we get the door going,
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Ben, would you,
Oh, yeah.
the welcome message real
Did you
quick?
find the meeting minutes yet?
No, I've been searching.
I'm gonna, now I'm